Good evening. The time having arrived and a quorum being present, I hereby call this meeting of the Brockton Finance Committee to order. Madam Clerk, item number 1.
Ordered that the City Council authorize the City Clerk to waive the 120-day period under 301 CMR 51.08B1 to permit the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, acting through the Department of Conservation and Recreation, to purchase the subject 8 acres of land as identified in Exhibit A, located in the City of Brockton. The waiver requires approval by both the City Council and the Mayor. Invited Timothy Cruz, City Clerk, Robert Sullivan, Mayor, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Councilor Lally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the sponsor, I don't really have a ton of questions. I'm happy to see that this is happening. I wanted to just say for the folks at home and for my colleagues that our vote tonight is not a vote to allow this or to deny it. It is a vote to simply allow the state to get on with this without waiting 120 days, which, I really see no reason to. Adding this land is a bit of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. But we do have the clerk here and Mr. Preventure from the DCR to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. The councilor adequately explained this is just something that came to us from the state. This is a private sale, but under the state law, they have to wait 120 days before they can purchase this. He wasn't invited, but we have Sean Preventure from the DCR here tonight. If there's no objections to Madam President, I'd ask him to come up and he can explain to you. I gave you all a package on what it is, but this is not approving a land sale. That's a private thing between the state and this landowner. This is just on waiving the 120 days. But Mr. Preventure, if you can come on up. And
Councilors, anyone have a problem with Mr. Preventure speaking with us? Great. Good evening, Mr. Preventure.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for being here.
So my name is Sean Preventure, and I'm a land protection specialist with the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. First of all, thank you to Councilor Texera for helping me find my way up here. Early, I got a little lost on the ground floor. As Mr. Cruz said, this is a private sale. We do these all the time, all across the state, all year long. This is the first one we've done in Brockton for some time. The piece of land we're looking to add to Ames Knoll State Park, which is entirely in Abington, hopefully soon to be in Brockton, if you all approve. It's about 8 acres, landlocked land, most of it's wet. It's a perfect conservation piece for us to add on to the state park. And we cannot close on any land transaction until 60 days after a public announcement happens. That public announcement happened last Monday at
the City Council meeting.
At the City Council meeting, excuse me. And the second regulation we have is that we also can't close until, is that we have 120 days from that same public announcement. They're a bit conflicting, it's odd. What we're asking you to do is to waive the 120 days so that we can close after 60 days from last Monday. It's as simple as that. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So looking at the map, Exhibit A, and it does, as you stated, it's a relatively small piece of land. Is there, and you said it was mostly wet in your comments, is there any expectation, or what is going to be built on? Is it going to be, like, what's the purpose, just to add to the existing land with no expectation of development or park development or anything?
None, no expectation whatsoever. It'll be protected under Article 97 of the amended Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, same as all other state park land.
So it will remain as it is today?
It'll remain woods and wetlands.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Preventure, give us an idea. Is there any reason why the City of Brockton would not waive this 120 days? What happens in other instances?
We usually get the waiver if we ask for it. We're pushing, the 120 days pushes up closest to the end of the fiscal year. I'm sure you folks can understand. We try to avoid that whenever possible. This just gets us a little bit more cushion in case we run into any title problems or anything like that. But if you choose not to waive it, we're just pushing the closing further on towards the end of the fiscal year.
Motion to recommend favorably?
Second.
Counselors, a motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Clerk
you.
Cruz. Madam Clerk, number 2.
Ordered in accordance with General Laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the tax increment exemption agreement tie between the city and CMD Development Partners for the property located at 137 Main Street. Invited John O'Donnell, Chairman, Board of Assessors, Chief Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Counselors, Mr. O'Donnell is unable to be with us this evening. Good evening, Mr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the council. Very pleased to be able to discuss with you tonight the first of 2 tax increment exemption tie agreements. For just a little background for councilors that may have not seen one of these agreements before, or for the folks watching at home, a tie agreement is a tax incentive agreement to encourage development here in the city. It's a tool that the city has used. Many still get the 40%, and after the period of 10 years, we get the full 100% of the taxation. So this developer, or any developer, can take that incentive, monetize it, and reinvest that money in the property. So it's a very effective tool, one that I've actually used here in Brockton in collaboration with the mayor and in other communities where I've worked to encourage development. In this case, the developers are here with us. We have Mike Mather and Mike Mather are both here with us, and it's been a pleasure to work with them on this project, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or Mr. Mather will answer any questions specifically you have on the development.
Mr. Clarkson, just confirm for us, a tax increment exemption agreement is focused on residential property.
That is correct. That is correct. So that's a good point, Madam Chairman. Thank you for bringing that up. So the commercial part of any development like this is taxed at the full amount. That is not part of the tie agreement.
So to the extent there might be commercial property on the first floor, it is taxed at a commercial rate?
Correct.
And the rest of the building is residential?
Right.
Okay. Questions? Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Mr. Clarkson. First, I wanted to welcome Mr. Kavanaugh to council today, and we appreciate your investment in the city of Brockton. I've had the, I attended the planning board meeting. I saw what the plans were for this residential development, and this is the old Marion building. This building will be knocked down. This will be a 100% new commercial residential development that will be existing in all 3 of Mr. Marion's lots. The lighting, the facade, the amenities, the new construction, the little pocket park that's going to be developed where the space between the existing Marion Brothers and the Brockton Beer Company, that little area, the renovation of that area. This is really going to be a benefit, a huge benefit to our downtown. It's going to be a great addition. And I'm really excited about this project moving forward, and I support it, and I ask the rest of my councilors to support this tie agreement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, thank you to Councilor Thompson for clarifying. I had flipped them. I was mentioning the one by the Mathers. That's the next item on your agenda. This indeed is for 137 Main Street. So just to clarify, this is 99 units and has a base value of $810,300.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kavanaugh is here should you have any questions for him.
Okay. Councilors? Counselor Farwell.
Just a technical question. There are 3 different addresses on the paperwork that we've received, and I just want to make sure we include the 3 addresses in any tie agreement. I have 137
Main Street is on the agenda, and then I have a map of 147 Main Street, and then I think I have a quitclaim deed for 157 Main Street. So I guess no opposition to this. I just want to make sure that legally we include all of the different addresses if in fact they're 3 different parcels, because I would think that any agreement would attach to all 3, unless I'm wrong.
That's a great point, Counselor. If you look at the actual copy of the agreement that's been provided to you, under property, it does specifically reference 137 Main Street, but then there is a map attached. So I will make sure, and I'll clarify with the law department to make sure we have the proper legal description.
Well, I just wonder if we should have it here. That's my question. Should we amend this to include those 3 addresses so that when it receives a favorable recommendation, there's no question as to what we've acted upon and what we've recommended favorably?
I certainly don't think there's any harm in amending it to include those addresses, but, and I also think that if you say, as demonstrated on the plan, is sufficient as well. But you're right, the detailed property description is in your packet attached to your agenda, but for belt and suspenders?
It does show 3 different parcels. I guess if there's no objection, maybe I'll ask Mr. Kavanaugh what he thinks we should do, just to make sure we're thorough here, that's all. I mean, if you're comfortable with this, just mentioning 1 address, I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure that we don't have to come back and technically vote on 2 other parcels or 2 other addresses, that's all.
So, but I think you're making an excellent point. Why don't, if you're, in the packet, there is a detailed plan of the property. If you want to just amend the motion and say, as described on the attached existing conditions plan, I think that would suffice. So there is a map in your packet that does show the parcels, and it actually lists them by their assessors map.
Right, 1 address, yeah.
And that's part of Exhibit 1.
Madam Chair, then I would just add to the order that as the tie agreement would be attached to the properties as presented this evening, or in the packet.
Right, it is Exhibit, listen to me, Exhibit 1
Yes.
on the,
Yes, thank you.
on the, okay. Okay,
Second?
well, let's,
I think,
I don't think you made a motion, but
Oh,
I've
never
got
mind.
more people to
Yes, I still
speak,
think-
okay?
I still think she should.
So, are you finished, Counselor Farwell?
I am, thank you,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually had a question for Mr. Kavanaugh, if I could.
Good evening, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I am not exactly sure, because I haven't seen, at least through the package that we haven't seen a rendition of this property itself, what your vision is to this particular property. If you have that, I think it would be, at least it would help my eyeballs a little bit to see
Yeah,
what
we have a rendering.
what it's going to look like.
Yep. Put this one here for the TV. Thank you, Rob.
Counselor Tavares, are you able to see the photo?
no, actually not.
Okay.
Just need to hold it better.
Yeah. Can
Yep, better.
we ask, yeah. BC Ada.
Now, help me out here for a second. I mean, this,
Ask.
I know the property,
Thank you.
the Marion property pretty well, but this is the new concept that you're proposing to put in that spot?
Yes.
Okay. And it's going to go from not too far away from the neighbor, I mean, the beer building there, going south, basically. Right. Okay.
Mr. Kavanaugh, I'd appreciate it if you could stay close to the microphone.
Well,
so
at
that
least
our
bring the
viewers-
microphone with you.
You can walk with it.
Walk it
Yeah, you
over.
can pick it up. Have a
So-
walkabout.
This is the Neighbor Works building here, and I'll come explain it. This is the Neighbor Works building here, the new building. This is the parking lot that's here now, that's going to be a park that the city's going to build. And our building's going to go along the 3 properties where Marion is now, which Councilor Farwell was speaking of.
So it's gonna go south towards the courthouse.
Yes.
How far from the, so there's a smaller building where Luminosity is, the glass enclosed building. Is that part of this project?
No, it is not.
It's going to stay on? stay
Yes.
as is.
The Luminosity building is right there.
Okay, it would be right there.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why, I actually wrote down this question prior to even asking my question is because I think Mr. Clarkson kind of threw us for a little loop when he said there was like the smaller property on the east side versus this one.
Right.
And I was wondering, since aesthetically, we're trying to get, the downtown to look like a downtown versus what it has looked like in the past, and that's why I had a concern to at least to see what the building looked like, at least to fit into the scheme that we're trying to fit into this area. So I'm glad you're bringing that up, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Can I explain? So this is the Neighbor Works building right here, and this is the existing parking lot that is here now, the city's going to build a park on. And our building are the 3 parcels that you just spoke of, Counselor, and then the Luminosity building is over here on the corner.
Councilor Rodriguez, are you all set?
No, I'm good. I'm well. Thank you for doing this, and I'd be looking forward to supporting this as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Azak?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for my colleague, for Ward 5 Council, for clarifying the address, because I was confused as well, so thank you. So I had seen the renditions, I had seen the presentation at the Planning Board, which is, it's a beautiful building. This is exciting for our downtown. I think it will be a beautiful addition. I only have one concern, and it just came up now, when you mentioned the city turning the parking spaces into a park. I think, and that's maybe a discussion we need to have with our city planner, because we have a problem with parking in the city. And I know that you're going to have parking for this building underneath, which I was very excited about and think it's very great. It's a great thing, but I just, I know that customers to Brockton Beer Works park in that little parking lot now. And we have Alvero's across the street, so parking is a big thing, and I know that's not why we're here this evening, but I just want to, just bring that up, to just keep that in mind. I think it's a beautiful building. We welcome you. Thank you for investing in Brockton. We're going to miss the Marions. They've been there forever. The shop's been there forever, but I have my colleague would like to know when the groundbreaking is going to be, so.
Well, we hope it will be before the end of this year. We're actually very close to finalizing everything, and at which point we will have our architectural firm. It's a local firm, by the way, BKA Architects, right down on Crescent Street, and they will begin drawing it in detail as soon as we get our final financing approvals dealt with.
Perfect. Oh, it's beautiful. So is that a rooftop? I see a little patio up top, but I don't know.
Yes, that will be a fitness center, community room with a with a patio for the residents.
Very beautiful. Well, thank you again, and I think this will be an asset, and, downtown development can't move fast enough for me, so I'm excited to see that this is moving forward. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If we don't have any more questions or comments, then
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Well,
Yes, a point of information. I believe any amendments need to be done in city council, so I don't think we can amend in committee, but we can send an amendment, correct wording, and it could be voted on in city council. I believe that is correct.
I believe we can amend it here.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think that might be just the proper procedural way, just that I would like, before we make any amendments, to have legal counsel take a look at it, see what her recommendation is on the issue that Councilor Farwell brought up. And if she finds that there is a deficiency, she can let us know, and we can make a said amendment next week. I just don't want to make any amendments today that may not be proper. And so if we could give our city solicitor the week, take a look at it, and make a determination if an amendment's required.
That's fine. Then I'm looking for,
Second to her motion.
okay. Thank you. So I have a motion to recommend favorably, and it's been properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you for being here.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Order 3, in accordance with general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the tax increment exemption agreement tied between the city and 380 Quincy Street LLC for the property located at 380 Quincy Street. Invited John O'Donnell, Chairman, Board of Assessors, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Mr. Clarkson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to go back quickly to the item you just voted, although Mr. O'Donnell could not be here, he is watching and sent me a note. The legal address for the new project will be 137 Main Street. So we'll check with the solicitor, but I believe that that's sufficient because it will be
Okay.
a single parcel.
Thank you.
So, and now this is 380 Quincy Street, a tie agreement. This is for 39 units, and the base of assessed value is $194,500. And like with the prior agreement, this fits what has been under this mayor, the standard tie incentive of 60% for 10 years. And the developers are here if you have any questions.
Councilors? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To my fellow councilors, I'm really excited about this project that's before us today. 380 Quincy Street is essentially across from the former Christo's restaurant on Quincy Street, behind the existing gas station at the four corners of the Massasoit entrance. That existing lot is essentially a barren parking lot. And so this development's really gonna, really bring some value to that area of Quincy Street. This is the gateway to the east side of Brockton, and so to add a modern, new construction residential development in that area with the landscaping and the greenery and everything that comes with it. Is really going to, bring a lot of value to that section of town. When people drive in from the west, coming east into Brockton, they're going to see this beautiful development, and I really think it's going to, be an asset to the east side of Brockton. So I support this project. I support the developers. I'm excited about this moving forward, and I ask that you all vote to recommend this matter favorably. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Clarkson, will this one also have commercial space on the first floor?
No, this one is all residential.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Beautiful rendition. I think this is going to be a beautiful addition to the east side. I'm down in that area all the time, especially maybe this will help move everything else along down in the Christo's area. So hopefully this will be a start of a lot of good things. When is the planned groundbreaking?
Well, we plan on,
Why don't you come up to the table, Mike?
I got a sciatica problem, so.
Sir, would you give me your name for the record?
My name is Michael Mather Senior.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm the owner of the property over at 380 Quincy Street. And just want to add that what Councilor Thompson said, that when you come into Brockton from Halifax, Hanson, Whitman, West Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, Bridgewater, Abington, it's the first building they're going to see, and I think it, as you can see, it looks really nice, and it would be an addition. We're hoping to break ground as soon as possible. We were going to break ground a couple of years ago. Councilor, in pandemic came, and it raised the prices by twofold, and it was just, it just couldn't work. And I mean, I'm a long-time Brockton resident, but I'm just a poor boy from Brockton here. It just was too much for me. So we're hoping to get it moving after this and a couple other things. But I can't give you an exact date.
Oh, that's fine. Well, hopefully it's soon, because I know things need to move quickly before prices go up.
Yes, exactly.
But thank you, and we appreciate you investing in Brockton. We know you've been here, your family's been here forever, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All set, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mather, is it fair to say you'll be breaking ground in 2023?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. I wish I was breaking ground in 2020. So yes, I want to do it as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
We can make it happen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Make a motion to recommend favorably?
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Take care.
Four, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $51,480 from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, FY22 Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG, to the Emergency Management Agency, FY22 Emergency Management Performances Grant, EMPG Fund. The Emergency Management Agency will use this funding to purchase a vehicle trailer, light tower, and generator. Invited Steve Cook, Jr., Director of Brockton Emergency Management, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Commissioner Hook.
Good evening, Madam Chair and City Councilors. Hope everyone's well. So this is just a straight grant, no match required, and like the clerk said, we're gonna purchase a generator, portable generator, a vehicle trailer, and a portable lighting unit. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Motion to recommend favorably?
Second.
On the motion.
Councilor Azak.
Good evening, Mr. Hook. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Quick question. How many, do we have generators? We have purchased generators in the past, correct?
Yes, we have several different sizes, different types. This one's going to be a smaller one, a portable 2,000-watt generator.
And it's specifically to emergency management, or will it be over at the War Memorial, or is it just for wherever is needed?
Yeah, so it will be stored in one of our, we got stuff spread out all over the place because, as you know, our garage was at the old high school, which is going to be torn down, so we have stuff kind of scattered currently. But it will be placed in one of our locations where, probably down at DPW compound, that we can access it in case we need it in an emergency.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion.
They made one and it was
Oh,
seconded.
sorry, and I knew that. All right, a motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? And opposed? Thank you. The motion
you.
passes. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Item 5, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the grant congressionally directed spending in the amount of $3 million from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, FY23 Community Project Funding Grant, to the Finance Department FY23 Community Project Funding Grant Fund. The grant congressionally directed spending funds will be used to upgrade Lawrence R. Cosgrove Memorial Pool. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Timothy Carpenter, Superintendent of Parks.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening again, Madam Chairman, members of the council. This is the official step in the earmark that we've been hearing lots about. So with tonight's acceptance, that allows us to officially accept the $3 million from the federal government. The project is well on its way. As you know, our original intent was to use the federal ARPA dollars that we received directly, but with this earmark, that will free up some of those ARPA dollars to dedicate to other projects. Tim Carpenter is here with us tonight if you wish to have an update on the project itself, but our project manager, Dan Pilata, has been hard at work, and I believe we're ready to go out to bid for this project.
I would like an update.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening,
Good
councilors.
evening.
So as Mr. Clarkson said, we hope to have this project out to bid the end of this month. Obviously, unfortunately, that will mean it's a long construction period. We will lose the pool season this year. Regulations have changed. That building will become fully ADA compliant from the entryway to the pool all the way to the pool deck. That'll be a huge improvement. The bathrooms will all be upgraded. We'll actually have hot water there. And then there's sort of the unforeseen or unseeable changes that need to happen. Again, that pool is 57 years old. Regulations have changed, so we need to replumb the entire pool. We're also going to get rid of the deciduous earth filter that's currently in place there. For those of you that don't know, deciduous earth is a very, very fine powder. And for the people and it has to be changed weekly. And it's because it's a very fine powder, can get in the lungs, so it's kind of a dangerous situation. So we're going to go to a full sand filter system there. That sand is good for about 8 years before it needs to be changed out. And again, most of these systems will mimic exactly what's at the Manning pool, making a lot of the training that's going to be necessary minimal, because the people that help us maintain the Manning pool will be very comfortable with those systems. All new pump upgrades. I know this isn't the flashy stuff. It doesn't get your feet wet, but it gets the water to where it needs to go. So that's sort of the update. I'd be happy to answer any questions, should there be any.
Thank you. Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carpenter, I don't know if you know this or not, but I was heavily involved in the Manning pool when we actually took it over from the DCR into what it is today. And I know that pool at the time cost somewhere around $1.5 million to go from a totally dilapidated piece of land that was there before into what we have there now. So the fear that I have, and I think I'd voiced this out before, that if we tell the world that we have $3 million or $4 million to develop a project that was done years ago for about $1.5 million, I think it's going to end up costing us $3.5 million or $4 million without getting the bells and whistles that we should get in that project. That's the fear that I have, because when the Manning pool was done, it wasn't done based on we've got this lump sum of money to spend in the pool. It was, let's figure out how to best get the biggest bang we can for our buck with that project. So it seems to me, I know that there's an influx of ARPA funds, and it feels like it's founded money in a way, that it's not real money. But at the same time, I think we got to be very careful how we put this out there, because I live on the east side of the city, and I like to see a facility that resembles a facility that this city deserves to have. I bring this up all the time. I know I'm not, some of us are not ward councilors, but we are nevertheless councilors of the city, and every single ward is our ward. So I want to make sure that what was done on the east side, on the west side, actually is replicated on the east side, so we can have that kind of a facility. But I also don't want to see it being put out there so that, they decide to throw a couple little pools together, a couple little things together, and call it quits for the money, because it's a lot of money, and we should get something that technically surpasses what's on the west side. And that's the fear that I have, because I'm looking at this, and frankly, it's kind of blah. You know, it's not what I would think that we could get with $3.5 million, $4 million, or even with the other millions that we're proposing to throw in there. So I hope that this isn't the final product. You know, there's a lot more to go to it, because I know it's in the middle of the city, and we tend to just kind of throw things up and hopeful, you know, we're looking at it, the kids are going to be thrilled with, you know, just having some water to splash around. But some of us that actually live in that side, I mean, I live less than a half a mile away from that pool. You know, we want to see something that, you know, dazzles people, because it is a lot of money. So how do we make sure that it's not just something that's tossed together or pitched together with very little, you know, something that blings on the eye in the sense?
Let me take a stab at that, Counselor. I'll defer to Tim's expertise on pools and recreational facilities, but speak to our approach, the mayor and me and our team, on this and all of the projects. This is precisely the reason why we brought in an experienced project manager in Dan Pallotta, who has years of experience in literally hundreds of millions of dollars of public construction, so that we have a representative who is on site and understands public construction and can get that best bang for the buck. And so, from my perspective, I'm very confident that we will have a project of which you can all be proud, and one that does indeed dazzle you when you see it. But I'll let Tim speak to the specifics.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that I would add to what Mr. Clarkson said is that the design company that was chosen in part because they have an employee there that is specifically dedicated to pool design. He's designed pools throughout the state, throughout New England, and I would say that this is going to be a pool that dazzles.
Yeah, because one of the things that at least that we insisted on the pool on the west side is that it wasn't just a watering hole. You know, it had a nice shaded area that was not part of the project. It has a picnic area. It had an area that, you know, with some, you know, playground equipment, you know, for little children to play with. It had a concession, a place of concession where people can go out and buy food. The bathhouse, you know, where you shower. The grounds were done in ways that it was, I mean, I don't know, I haven't been there in a couple of years to see what it looks like, but you know, it was basically top of the line when we first got that. You know, so that's what I wanted to make sure that it gets replicated in here. And I think I'm the only city official in the history of this city that actually was certified pool operator when that pool first came online, because it was one of the requirements that DCR wanted. So I had to get certified as the mayor's assistant here, but certified pool operator, because they actually handed us the keys and said, it's your pool now. You figure out what to do with it. But I also want to make sure that for the good of the kids in this community that happens. You know, that it's not just, well, it was the Cosgrove pool, so we're just going to throw the Cosgrove pool back in there. You know, because it's not all about water anymore.
No, I understand, and this is we did have two design ideas. One was basically to rebuild the Cosgrove pool. It turns out that this is probably a more cost-effective way to go about it, but I think the product for the city is much better than the Cosgrove pool. I understand the Cosgrove pool has served this city faithfully for 50-some-odd years, 57 years. But it's just a pool. I mean, I think part of the draw of the Manning pool specifically is, as you stated, there are features there for kids. The splash features and whatnot, you know, the progressively deeper pool. And I think we've incorporated a lot of that into this design. So I think it's going to be a much more user-friendly facility. And I think the other thing that is maybe overlooked a little bit with this is currently at the Cosgrove pool, you have the baby pool, and then you have a fence, and then you have the big pool. So if you're a parent there with two kids of varying ages, one very young and one that might be, you know, 10, 12 years old, you're having to try and sort of split time between watching your kids. This pool eliminates that. It allows families as a unit to enjoy the pool together. And I think that's an important feature of this design as well.
Well, the Manning pool was basically the same way as the Cosgrove pool, but it was ripped out, and it basically was done from scratch to make sure that it was a facility.
And that is the intent with this, is the Cosgrove pool will be completely demolished as it exists now, the pool itself.
But I like to see, honestly, Tim, I like to see, the area outside it, in a sense, look like a mini little park somewhere. With flags and some of the things that you see in these places, because, again, it's not just about water.
Right, and in the rendition, you'll see, because of the slope from the parking area to the pool, there has to sort of be a meandering walkway that'll be all nicely landscaped, all about to the entrance of the pool facility in the bathhouse itself. There'll be additional picnic tables in the corners there, as well as the shade structure. So I think this is going to encompass a lot of those larger additions that you're speaking of.
Well, I hope so, because so often you see these projects being pumped in the middle of the city that, frankly, the Cosgrove pool looks like a little prison, with the fencing around it, and you think it's just an extension of Plymouth County House of Correction and stuff. So that's why I want to make sure that it has the features that, the citizens of this, the middle of the city actually deserve. Thank you.
I think you'll be very, very pleased with it, Councilor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Well, Commissioner, we're interested in aesthetics, and I can foresee having you back in a couple of months for a progress report and maybe pictures or renderings, okay?
Happy to do
And
so.
if you get in a jam for pool operating, council may have someone we can lend you to help out with that.
I will keep that in mind as well, thank you.
Councilor Minicello.
Hi, thank you for attending this evening. When I see something like this, I get excited for the kids of the city. I can appreciate Council Rodriguez's comments and concerns, because this city used to have 4 pools. The city used to have the pool over in Montello, near the car wash. The south side used to have a pool, and obviously east and west. So I really do appreciate what Councilor Rodriguez is saying, that we want to maximize the value for the kids of this city, because this is long overdue, I think. So I'm excited about the project. It's certainly going to be an improvement, but I don't want to just sort of get pat on the head and say, well, you're getting a new pool. Well, I want to make sure, and just like Councilor Rodriguez, yeah, we're getting a new pool, but we're going to make sure we get, all the bang for the buck, because these pools are so busy. We have so many children that like to utilize these pools, and as Councilor Rodriguez can tell you, he was involved over on the west side. There's long lines during the day to get into these pools. These kids, are waiting their turn. So any way that we can maximize the space, can you just quickly tell us how many more children, in terms of usability, how many kids today can use the Cosgrove pool at one time, and how many are we anticipating with this new project?
So by state regulation right now, the capacity of the Cosgrove pool is 250 people. And that's not 250 people necessarily in the pool, that's 250 in the complex.
Right.
The actual footprint of where this new pool will sit is not changing that much, so our occupancy, it's based on deck size, and that's a state regulation. So the occupancy will still be around 250.
Is there any way we can make modifications?
With the proximity to the Salisbury Brook on the, I guess that would be the north side of the complex, there's not any way we can go any further that way. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible with the deck space that we have.
I just think it's well worth it if we take another look to expand the space, the footprint, so to speak, so that more children can be involved in different activities, on that site. Maybe X amount are in the pool at one time, but at least kids don't have to be sitting or standing in line at the fence and not being able to do something. Maybe there could be again, like you said, picnic areas, or a little mini, park or something for, smaller kids. or even an area for, kids with disabilities. That's a very highly populated portion of the city, and kids will come from all over the city to utilize that. So I just want to make sure that we, just like Councilor Rodriguez said, that, we're not just going to take what we're given, we're going to make sure that, what we're given, we're going to get what we should get from that money. And if we can, any way, shape, or form, expand this footprint to have more kids being able to utilize that site, maybe not all in the pool at the same time, but, doing certain activities, I'd rather see them having some fun than standing in a hot line, leaning against a chain link fence, So whatever we can do to get a really nice end product, I think that, we need to take the time to do that and make sure we get a nice end product, for the kids. And that's what it's all about. That's why we all serve here. We want to, we're all in agreement, I think, and so are you. We just need to make sure we get our money's worth and really turn this into something great for the kids, instead of just something good. I want excellent, not just good, as I'm sure you all do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Mendez.
Yes, hi. It's very exciting. My question is regarding the Manning pool. So what are we doing to address the higher demand? Because as has been said here tonight, it's going to be very crowded, especially with this pool closing for the summer season. So what is your strategy?
Actually, the mayor and Troy and I sort of indirectly had some conversations about that. Again, the capacity of the Manning pool is 200. I can't change that capacity. Again, that's state regulation. So we're trying to come up with some sort of innovative thoughts on how we can better utilize that facility this specific pool season in order to try and serve as many people as possible. Specifics, I'll be honest with you, Counselor, I don't have those right now, but I guess I would say that please know that those conversations are taking place.
I would think so, because it's going to be a very tough summer without a pool, with just one pool in the city. So maybe a schedule, sign up, or, yeah. Good luck with that challenge. You'll definitely need to figure something out to make sure you include all the kids that want to enjoy the pool to be able to do so.
Come into a situation where maybe we have some cooperative agreements with the Y, who has an indoor pool, and the high school, who has an indoor pool, to try and better utilize all those facilities that are currently in the city to help sort of ease some of that congestion.
That would be great. So when you come for your progress report, it would be great if you can also update us on the status of the additional pool, so we can let the residents know as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Counselor Lally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little-known bit of information for some of my newer colleagues, but actually Councilor Rodriguez's status as a pool operator is precisely why we appointed him mayor several years ago. One of the things that you said, Mr. Carpenter, when we welcomed the delegation from Washington and showed them around the Cosgrove, was you remarked about the size of the existing pool. It was like an Olympic-sized pool, one of the few outdoor in the state.
Correct.
And I know you made mention that the new pool would sort of keep that, status.
No,
oh, it wouldn't?
unfortunately,
Okay.
we will lose that. It will no longer be a 50-meter pool.
Okay, all right, my mistake. I wanted to establish exactly where that was going, but no, the design is forward. It's more progressive than like some of my colleagues have described, a little bit glum. The pools serve a very important purpose. I know Councilor Azak and I have talked about the restoration of a Montello pool, because it is something that it is in high demand. One of the things I would want to mention to Councilor Minichiello's point about expanding the sort of destination, providing other things for people to do, that may be something you know, in the future that we can look at. I know with the expenses that we have that, you know, this plan is swinging for the fences, but, you know, with money from the state or additional federal money or money from the city and the school, you know, this area is right next to a school anyway. There, you know, right outside the fencing, there could be, you know, some effort made at some kind of a playground in the future. But as it stands right now, with what we're looking at, I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with this, and I thank you for your efforts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple of technical questions, and I'm not sure I heard properly. This hasn't gone out to design and engineering yet, correct? Or it has?
Design, yes.
It has.
Construction, no.
All right, and we've already picked a construction manager?
Well, we have, as an employee of the city, Dan Pilato, who's been on staff for at least a year now, who is overseeing all of the construction projects, City Hall, War Memorial, the pool, so everything.
Okay, so when you say a city employee, is he going to be paid a percentage of the job, or what is his salary?
He is paid a salary as a city employee. And the advantage to that is we're saving significant monies in project management fees on all of these projects, because he is, as a salaried employee, overseeing them as part of his responsibility.
Okay, now, I've never been a construction manager, but is he going to be able to devote the time and effort to make sure this project meets all of our expectations, given what must be multiple demands on his time?
Yes, but I will tell you, we are having conversations now about supplementing his work with an additional boots-on-the-ground person who will be able to be at those sites on a daily basis.
Okay, and I'm excited for the project, too. I am going to throw a little shade on this thing, though. Doesn't even have a direction of where North is, doesn't even have where Crescent Street is, doesn't have the dimensions of the pool, and, you know, if somebody asked me to describe what the new project is going to be like, I'd probably be left with not much to say, and I am a little disappointed that that's all we could come up with. You know, perhaps a more robust description of what's going to happen can come out to us in the coming months, and we'll know exactly, for example, safety and security issues, first aid issues. I don't know if you're going to have parking, for example, on here. I'm not quite sure what you have planned for parking for those who want to come with a family in a motor vehicle. Is there going to be parking available?
So the location, I mean, obviously, you know where the Cosgrove Pool is, so the parking is the parking for the Arnone School.
So that's not going to change?
That will not change.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes, you're correct, the Plouffe School.
Okay. All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Mr. Carpenter. I have to say, you know, really exciting things happening on the east side, this pool being one of those. First, I want to thank our federal delegation for the $3 million earmark, which we're accepting today. You know, that's going to go a long way to developing and building this pool, and also frees up ARPA funds for other projects, or at least some ARPA funds. So, number one, thank you for to the federal delegation, and you know, anybody in the City Hall who worked, including you, Mr. Carpenter, and you, Mr. Clarkson, in acquiring this federal earmark. So, you know, we've been talking about the design, and, you know, I've been to Cosgrove Pool many times. It's where I learned to swim. But it's an intimidating pool, you know, for a young kid. It's a 50-meter pool, and how deep is it? It's going to be 10 feet?
So it progresses from 3 feet to 5 feet, and then the old diving well is 12 feet.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean it's a huge pool, and so I think this one is, as you said earlier, a little more user friendly. I think the children of Brockton, as they progressively get older, will get a lot of use out of this facility. It's less intimidating. You can start as a young child in the splash pool and work your way over to the lap pool as you get more confident in your swimming abilities. So I'm really excited about this. Of course, I want the most magnificent pool money can buy, and I think, so I do appreciate your efforts in pool adjacent or swimming adjacent, but would there be an expectation of some like programming to add some events to this pool?
So currently with the operation of the Cosgrove Pool, as I'm sure you're well aware, the lifeguards are provided through the YMCA here, the Old Colony YMCA. So they do have and have had in the past, some programming with swim lessons and whatnot. We've worked with Brockton Public Schools to have special needs there a couple of days a week, past couple of summers. The one sort of YMCA/school event that was there at the pool the last couple of years was the Mark O'Reilly swim meet. They enjoyed that because that's where he swam, but it was because it was also a 50-meter pool. So technically, you could still have that because there will be a 25-meter area lap pool. It's just twice as many laps. So yeah, I mean, I think those types of programmings will continue at the new facility.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Now, the issue of concessions has been brought up. Was there any consideration of concessions? I mean, we do have a food truck ordinance now that would allow for a food truck to pull up. Do you think there'd be any synergies between operation and food trucks and, allowing for a picnic or some sort of food to be served in this location as well?
So yeah, currently there are various amounts of ice cream trucks that end up in the parking lot there just outside. There is not currently in this plan. As you know, that bathhouse is not very large, and every inch of space is used for facilities. So there is not plans for a concession in here. We do allow people to bring lunch into the pool currently. I would imagine that would continue in the new facility. There is the addition of the couple of picnic areas there. There's ones in the corners, and then there's the larger shade structure. There will be a lawn area within the confines of the pool, but outside of the pool house itself. Another area to sit and have something to eat. So while technically a concession stand is not in the plans, I think the ability for people to bring a lunch and find a place to have lunch at the pool will continue.
Great. I'm glad to hear that, there will be a food accessible where people, I do see there's kind of a grass area, picnic area, some shading for tables to sit down. So this looks like, this will be a facility that can be used by a family for hours or a full day here at the pool.
Absolutely, as long as they don't have any glass bottles. No
Right.
glass bottles allowed in the pool.
And then no alcohol allowed either. Great. So, I think this is a great addition to the east side. I think we all love the Cosgrove Pool and what it represented over the last 50 years, but it was for a different time when, swim meets and diving and all of that was, something that was more common. Now people want a place to cool off, that they can bring their children, and as you said, have one frame of vision or one view where they can see their 2-year-old in the splash pool and their 12-year-old in the lap pool, and be able to focus on one area in front of them instead of having to go back and forth between the children's pool and the existing pool. So I think it's more, as you said, user-friendly. I think this is going to be a great addition to the east side of Brockton, and I'm so looking forward to this coming to fruition. So thank you for your efforts in this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So Commissioner Carpenter, when you come back, we'll focus on aesthetics, a more detailed plan, perhaps along the lines of what Councilor Thompson just said, a picnic area outside of the pool to allow people to relax. You've got that nice Salisbury Park right there to the right. And I'm also wondering about in light of the fact that we're going to be down a pool this summer, what about increasing the hours on the Manning pool?
So it's a possibility. I mean, there's 2 days a week that we have Brockton After Dark up at the pool. So it does have extended hours on those 2 days. Yeah, I mean, like I had said earlier, I think there are a lot of discussions that'll be had internally, and then obviously we can update the council once we sort of have a firmer plan in place.
And, okay, and what about running a bus from the Cosgrove site to the Manning?
I've had conversations specifically with Vivian Renee from the Y about that. The issue, my concern with doing that is if we are already at capacity at the Manning pool and the bus gets there after we're at capacity, and then people either have to mill about until the bus comes back, or, so I think there are some details we would have to work out in there. But my worry is people would then be trapped at the Manning pool.
Sure.
And we're at capacity.
Sure. But there will be children that won't have a ride.
Absolutely.
Right. And as for the O'Reilly swim meets, this summer, for example, where will that take place?
I don't know. I haven't had a conversation since we sort of realized that we wouldn't have a pool this year with the organizers. I don't know that they necessarily want to have it at the Manning pool this year. So that's a conversation that we'll have to have sooner rather than later.
Okay, and you'll report back. Finally, I rode the bus from City Hall to the Cosgrove site the day our federal delegation was here with Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, and she said she'd love to come back for the ribbon cutting at the finish line. So she'll be looking for a nice pool.
Absolutely.
We'll keep that in mind.
Yep.
Councilors, anyone else? Oh, Councilor Rodriguez.
Madam Chair, thank you much. Mr. Carpenter, I mean, here we go again. You actually have come here asking us to release the $3 million that the city was promised to do this pool, but you're basically saying we're not going to touch the outside fence. It's going to stay within the same thing. You know, I don't know. I drive by the Cosgrove pool every single day. That pool looks like a prison. If you look at Plymouth County House of Correction and you look at that pool, it looks exactly the same. So to me, I think you need to go back to the drawing board and kind of rip that whole thing out and make it look like an appealing place for kids to go to, because it's not very appealing. I live right down the street from it. So I think we need to basically look at it and say, we're not going to stay within the confines of the wall, because there's plenty of spaces on the east side of the pool that you could actually go in with a picnic area or some playing area for kids and things like that, or even to the south of it, you can actually bring it closer to the parking lot. But basically, just to say, well, we're going to stay within the confines of the 8-foot fence or whatever it has on the outside, to me, it's not really doing justice for the monies that we're spending on this particular pool. You know, if it's just a cooling area, we can give up a bunch of hoses in the community and say, hook this up on your backyard and cool yourself off. But I'm just basically, I don't see that wow of a swimming area where people can actually see something if you're going to leave the tall fences the way they are, because that pool is not very attractive. Yes. It has never been attractive. You know, so I think we need to do something about that, not just to come in and say, well, we're going to stay within this wall, we're going to stay within this, but we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I don't think that's good enough, to be honest with you. You know, I think we got to rip it up and do it just like it was done on the west side. You know, not leave the fences because we can save, you know, $20,000 or $30,000 in a fence, because that's the way it was, but that thing was not very attractive. You know, and if that's the way it's going to be, you might as well leave it the way it is. You know, granted, yet you'll have the walk-in sections and all that other stuff, but it's not a very attractive pool on the outside. It is not, because you're going to keep it the same way, because again, it's the same. Oh, this is the way it is. Take it or leave it, basically, and that's not the way it should be. That's not the way it should be. And I think you need to, you know, basically, if that's the way it is right here, rip this up and start it from scratch. Yep. Because we're spending a lot of money on this, and we should be able to get a bigger bang for our buck in this particular thing. And just to, you know, when you said about the fencing on the outside, that the fence on the inside is going to come out. So we're going to have these sections. Again, I don't know, when was the last time you were in Plymouth County House of Correction? That's exactly the way that pool looks. you know, and I see it every day. We have family and friends that will go there because there's nothing else to do but going there. But it can't be. If we're going into 2023, going to spend all this money on that pool, it has to look a little bit better than the way it does on the outside.
That's right.
So by state regulation, every pool has to be surrounded by an 8-foot fence, at least an 8-foot fence. So does the fence line need to be cleaned up, and will it be done as part of this project? 100%. But the pool itself has to be enclosed by a fence.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't be enclosed. I'm saying the way it looks right now, you drive by that pool, it looks like you're at the courtyard of Plymouth County House of Correction. That's the way it looks. And when you see those kids, and I don't want to bring race into this, when you see those kids standing in line to go into that pool, it reminds me of kids standing in line at a prison to go into a prison. And we can't continue to do that. It has to be, you know, we have to put, you know, the bells and the whistles around it to make it look appealing to children so that it doesn't look like a compound, because that's what it looks like right now. And just again, the problem I'm having with this, and this is why I brought that up in the very beginning, you know, we've got all this money, and we're going to go to a developer and say, here, we want you to build us a pool. They're going to come in with the pool, and, okay, give me my $3 million because that's how much I build you a pool for. And I don't think we're getting a bigger, our bang for our buck. You know, the way it is right now, I think we've got to look at it this way, rip that whole thing out, start from scratch and say we're building a facility on the east side of the city for the children of the city. And I think that's the way we have to do it. We cannot go and say, well, this is where this is where the fence is. We're going to build from the fence in, because I think we're doing the same thing that we did before. You know, and there's plenty of things that were talked about. You know, you could go ahead and have, okay, fine, the pool platform can be whatever size it needs to be, but the compound itself can go as far as you want to. You know, there's no restriction on the compound. You can't go north because of the Salisbury River, but you can go east, you can go south, you know, and get this thing built into a compound, like a water park, you know, a water facility where people can go with picnic tables and a bunch of other stuff and actually say, hey, I'm going to this destination on the east side of Brockton. But the way it is right now, who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? I mean, you're going to look at this, because it sits up on the hill, and you got all this fencing around it. It's not very appealing to the eye. You know, and for some of us that live on that side, that have family or friends that actually live and use that pool, we use it because we have absolutely no other choice. And that's not how it should be. We should use it because we want to use it, not because we have no other choice. So I hope that you basically go back, as the council said on that side, rip this up and forget about, again, it's the patchwork. We're going to leave the old fence up, you know, with holes all over it probably, because it has holes all over it. You know, and that's what we're going to do to this thing. You know, that's not going to fly, to be honest with you. You know, some of us are not going to be happy with it. And I don't care how many people say that it looks beautiful, it's great, oh, this is so awesome. It's not. You know, I live a few steps away from this place, and it's not that awesome. And I think we need to do something better so that it's more appealing both to the eye and the pocketbook of the money that we're spending. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Minicello.
Just as a quick follow-up and adding on a little bit to what Councilor Rodriguez said, I can appreciate what you're saying in terms of we certainly have to comply with all the safety requirements, absolutely. But there is a lot of space over at the Plouffe School in that adjoining land. I mean, I would like to see, or us explore, now's the time to really vet this out, to see what we can put there. You know, there could be an expanded picnic area. There could be a volleyball area. There could be a wiffle ball area. There could be an area for a little bit of soccer. There's all sorts of stuff, I think, that could be explored. So, and look, we all want a new facility. We're all in agreement with that. But I think what Councilor Rodriguez is saying, and many of us, we want this for the east side of Brockton. We want this for, you know, there's going to be kids coming from all sorts of sides of Brockton to use this facility. But I think now's the time to really give it a little, have some thoughtfulness in terms of planning, that's all. I mean, no one's pointing the finger at you, and we just want to get for the kids a really nice facility, and now is the time to plan it the right way, instead of just accepting, look, this is certainly an improvement, we all know that, but let's just take a little bit of thought to see what more we can stretch out of this thing, and again, just to say that the same number of kids are going to be on that footprint, I think we can do better than that. I think we can expand that site. So the pool area is it might stay the same, but there's so many possibilities in terms of different activities that kids could do. You know, you could have an area that's shaded, and there could be like kids doing artwork. You know, some kids would, would need some shade and would like to just do some coloring, some artwork, some painting. I mean, there's all sorts of, I think, things that we can really be creative about. I mean, I'm a dull and boring guy, and I'm coming up with all these different types of fun things to do. So I'm sure there's people out there that can come up with much better ideas, but now's the time to do it. Since we're spending $3 million, let's really stretch it out and see what we can get and bring there to that side of town, and to expand that footprint so kids don't have to stand there next to the chain link fence. That's the worst thing in the world in a hot summer day. Sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. For as a kid, I remember as a kid, I hated that, so, we're all on the same page. But let's just, I guess, give a little more thought to what we can really have there. Thank you.
Motion to
Counselor
recommend
Farwell.
favorably?
Counselor Farwell.
Never mind.
Just, I take it, Superintendent, this has been through the Park Commission? They have voted all these approvals thus far?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just going to ask my colleagues, maybe it's me, is this the only enclosure, well, it wasn't an enclosure, we got it tonight, other than the emails going back and forth about sponsoring this matter, is this the only thing we've received? The only thing I've received. Am I right, colleagues?
Yes, we received it tonight.
And I'm just going to say, come on, folks, $2 million and that's all we receive?
$3 million.
$3 million.
$3 million, I'm sorry, $3 million, and this is all we receive. And I don't have a big ego, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't go before a board of directors, which is basically what we are when we approve money, and say, oh, give us the money and we're going to do what we want, and by the way, here's what we're going to do. I mean, I don't want to hold the project up, but if it were me, I'd postpone this a couple of weeks, and I'd have much more detailed information come in, because $3 million is a lot of money. And it's still taxpayers' money, whether it comes from the federal government or not. It's people who have paid their income taxes and whatever other obligations they have, and that's why we have this money to use. And I'm very grateful for it, but I didn't want people at home to think Councilor Rodriguez was ranting on and on. I share his concern that we really don't know what this thing is going to look like. I mean, we really don't. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, what is the will of the council?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second?
A motion has been made and properly
On the
seconded.
motion, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think one of the things, by the way, I'm not against this, because it's money coming to the city. It's a facility that's, don't get me wrong, because it makes it sound like we're, squabbling over whether to accept it or not to accept. That's not the case. And I hope that you guys understand that that's not the case. But I think I'd feel more comfortable, for instance, that at the council meeting next week, one of the amendments that I intend to put, and I hope that I'll get some support on this, is that prior to the final rendition of this project, not to vote in favor of this, but prior to the final rendition of this project, that the commissioner comes back, or the superintendent comes back here to this body to show us what this final thing is going to look like. Because I think we owe it to the taxpayers in this community to not to just accept the status quo. And that's often what we do, because we're so, in a dire situation that we're so, that's why every single project that comes in, we're so, jumping over each other to approve things, because we're expected to do that. Otherwise, we're viewed that we're anti this, anti that. But I want to make sure, I'm very vested on the east side of the city. I'm very vested in the middle of the city, because if you sit down and you look at it, a lot of us don't have a swimming pool at our house. and we can't bring the nephews and nieces to our houses to swim. They go to these public pools to swim. And that being said, I think that's one of the reasons why some of us feel so strongly about fighting for them to make sure that they actually get what they deserve. And I think for $3 million, $3 million, I just told you guys that the West Side one 12 years ago cost $1.5 million. We're doubling the price of that to this new one. And never mind what else the city is willing to put on top of that. So for that, all that money, I think we better get a better product than this. And that's what I intend to do on next Monday, is to make sure that there's an addition to this to this order, that prior to the final rendition, that it comes back to this council for us at least to look at it and be able to swallow what we're voting for. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Isaac.
Thank you. On the motion, just a quick question. Do we have, this maybe for Mr. Clarkson, do we have a timeline when we need to have this approved in order not to lose these funds?
Well, the design has been in process for some time. In the interest of providing something, this rendering has been provided to you, but and there was a rendering with some more detail, I believe, at the presentation of the federal funds a week or two ago, or maybe it was the same drawing. At any rate, I've been in contact during your discussion to try to be responsive to your concerns with our project manager. And as you might imagine, since we are redesigning and reconstructing the entire structure, the design process is quite extensive. And so we do expect some close to final drawings in about 3 weeks. But the mayor and I, for some time, have been saying we would love to come to a finance committee under a resolve and provide you detailed updates, not only on the pool, but on all of the ARPA projects that we've been making progress on. So we welcome the opportunity to provide you and the public with more detail on all of these important projects. But as soon as we have those progress drawings in a few weeks, we'll gladly provide them to you.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. So is timeline-wise, doesn't matter when this gets approved? I know we have the funds, we're not going to lose $3 million, but I know in past, we have lost grants in the past if they're not used, so.
Yes, I mean, one of the challenges of the ARPA funds is we are profoundly grateful, and because we are a larger municipality, we have the capacity to pursue these projects simultaneously. But there is a clawback provision, and we have to finish the projects within a finite period of time. So time is of the essence, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilors, a motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
6, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $2 million from United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, FY23 Healthy Homes Production Grant Program, HUD, to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority, FY23 Healthy Homes Production Grant Program Fund. The Brockton Redevelopment Authority agency intends on using these funds to provide financial assistance for moderate to low-income families to improve their living space, such as lead mediation, asbestos, air quality, mercury, asthma, mold, and mildew. This grant requires a 10% match that will be funded from the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, invited toward Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Patricia Jackson, Interim Executive Director from the Brockton Redevelopment Authority, BRA.
Good evening, Dr. Jackson. Mr. Clarkson and you are my invited guests, so who is with you tonight?
So if it would be okay, I invited up here with me Ms. Cindy Kong. She is the
Director of Programs and Operations with the Redevelopment Authority, who can speak better to and answer some of these spitfire questions that come at us, if it is okay with the council and with you, Madam Chair.
Councilors, do we have any objections? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
So we applied for a grant NOFA from HUD back in late October for $2 million. We already administer the Community Block Development Grant annually, as well as the Lead Hazard Control Program, which we received back in 2020, which is a $4.7 million grant. So in addition to that grant, which is something totally separate from the grant, we will be addressing mold and mildew, asbestos and air quality, with Brockton having a old housing stock market with homes being built pre-1978. It's extremely important to have this grant to address those hazards within the community, and we do target low to moderate income families.
Councilors, questions?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Okay, on the motion, Councilor Minicello.
Hi, good evening. Can you just tell me what providing financial assistance exactly means? Is that giving people funding or providing them with the service, or is there a low-income loan, or like, what exactly is providing financial services?
So with the Healthy Homes Production Grant, it is a grant, so we just place a affordable housing restriction on the property for 5 years. It goes down 20% each year, then after the 5th year, it's forgivable.
Okay, so it's obviously, there's a financial qualification that
Yes.
people have
Yep.
to. And now, is it equipment too? I mean, could it be providing someone with, an air purifier, or are we talking like redesigning duct work and things like that in people's homes? I guess how extensive and what are we talking about in terms of the actual equipment and/or design or service that will be provided to help people with, improving asbestos, air quality, mercury, asthma, mold, mildew? I mean, that's encompasses a big amount of possibilities.
So it's we go through a procurement process at the BRA. There is a construction process with the project, so it's a case-by-case scenario depending on the hazards that are identified in the property. So it could be, if it's mold or mildew, that's something that the contractors will go and mitigate. So it's a case-by-case scenario, so I'm not sure how I would be able to answer that, but it's case-by-case depending on.
So it's not necessarily providing equipment, it's going in and remediating some of these hazards that can potentially lead to some of these instances in the home. So it's not, through CDBG, we're not able to provide with equipment because we have to do all sorts of tracking and everything for HUD. So it is us getting contractors to go out to these homes to remediate some of these issues that affect a quality of life in a home.
And who provides the checks and balances to make sure that everything is the way it is? Everything being reported is indeed, what the issue is. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I've certainly been around the block where I've seen people give dimensions of a home, and they're supposed to be building a house, X number of feet, and they're building it a little bit smaller and trying to keep the extra money. There's got to be some checks and balances to make sure that, the people doing the work are doing it earnestly, so to speak. So yeah, how do the checks and balances work to make sure that, what's being done is indeed what needs to be done and what's being provided?
So like she had mentioned, we go through a procurement process. So we have the contractors, we have the inspectors, we go out, there's information that we have to be able to provide to HUD. HUD asks us questions. There's a whole checklist, a slew of things. So we can't prevent all instances. If they said they're going to build 1,200 square feet and they only do 11, we're not out there with measuring tape. But we do have inspectors who are certified, board-approved inspectors who go out and do make sure that at least what is written up on the specs is done to the quality, to the standard that the BRA has been doing for its other programs as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cindy and Dr. Pat,
Yes, sir.
nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Council.
What is the Brockton's allocation of the CGBG fund for this year?
So our official allocation notices haven't come out yet, but what we have been told off the record by our hub rep is assume it will be level funded. So I believe last year it was around $1.6 million, and they said assume level funded, but we haven't received those notices as of yet.
All right, so now you're taking $200,000 out of CGBG
Yes, sir.
to basically do the matching of the $2 million grant that you're getting.
Yes, sir.
So where or what programs are you going to cut from the CGBG fund to be able to cover that $200,000?
So what we're able to do with our funding is we assume higher than what we necessarily, so if we, and I'm just throwing out numbers, I'm not saying, off the record, let's say if we allocate $700,000 to a program, but we only need $400,000, it gives us some leeway when we put our budget together. So at least we get this, and it's before our allocation numbers are in, it's before the beginning of the fiscal year, we can already set aside this $200,000 to be able to allocate to this program. Also understanding too that every program that we funded the previous fiscal year may not be funded this next fiscal year, because if the project is completed, then we don't need to allocate those fundings to those specific line items.
So what are some of the programs that you fund with CGBG funds in the city?
A lot. So there are commercial rehab that we do, some of the development projects that we do, the facade improvement program, public facilities.
So facade comes out of the CGBG funds?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So there are quite a few programs that we fund through CDBG.
But do you see the concern that I have in
I can
terms
understand
of
that, but
the,
let's say, so we, in the past, if we have funded a development project through the CDBG funds, and that development project was finished in this fiscal year, we're not going to fund it again next year. So then we have that level of funding that we allocated towards this development project, and we can allocate it towards something else.
because years and years ago, perhaps even before Council Lally was born, we used to use CGBG funds in the city to do a variety of things with, including purchasing a fire truck, purchasing police cars. And the reason why I'm bringing up the police cars is that we know that we have a very demanding police department in the sense. I don't know when was the last time that CDBG funds were used to buy or purchase equipment for public safety in this city. It hasn't happened in my years, at least on the council, because I haven't heard that. But again, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that if we have $200,000 from CGB funds that are basically unallocated in the sense, I think it would make sense to utilize some of those funds, because once you allocate $200,000 for this home thing, you can't bring it back and put it into something else.
Right.
So we're actually kind of shortchanging some of the other needs that we have in this community as well, that I hope comes out of somewhere.
Possibly. And so we haven't funded police cars because there hasn't been an ask. So with some projects, we fund what they ask for. Granted, we have enough funding to be able to do so. So it's not necessarily shortchanging a specific program or a specific line item if they haven't asked for it.
Because one of the things that we were just discussing with the parks superintendent is if we have these funds that were so-called available funds, that we can put some of those things into a lot of these projects that we have going on in the city, where we can stretch, a few dollars into some bigger dollars in the sense. And that's why I'm bringing that up, and hope that you keep that in mind as well.
Yes, sir. And if this was a project, the previous project was to come in and apply for CDBG funding, and we had the funding there, we would 100% be able to support it. But CDBG funds, it's about what you ask for. And if they hadn't asked for it, then we don't necessarily, some things that we know we're going to put on the line item on the budget every single year. But then there are some things, such as, I'll use police cars because you brought it up. If they don't ask for funding for a police car, then we don't.
You also had funding that actually goes to some community-based organizations. Have you guys made those decisions as far
No, sir.
what you're going to be putting out?
They fill out that application during the open application period, and it's based on what they ask for during the open application period.
No, but do you have a set amount, for instance, that you say, look, out of this 1.6 million, well, actually 1.4 million, because you've already used up the 2 million, out of this, we're gonna spend X dollars on to supporting community-based organizations?
Councilor Rodriguez, you're making very good points, but I need to stay with the
I
healthy
understand that, Madam Council. It's just because on the order it says they're gonna take money out of CGBG, and I want to try to figure out, I also don't want to make sure, I want to make sure that we're not shortchanging another program somewhere in order to satisfy this grant. That's why I'm asking those questions.
Yes, sir. We would never shortchange a program in order to fund another program. If we didn't have it in the budget, we never would have dedicated a match fund to it.
This program is also over 3.5 years, so it's not the 200,000 for that fiscal year. It's going to be 200,000 over the 3.5 years.
Okay.
That only if we have to dip into those funds if a project exceeds the threshold.
Okay.
So it's not something that,
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Tavares.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Actually, I'm so excited about this program. Especially, I'm little gonna be so highly advocated. I'm trying to ask more questions to see, if anyone come across to apply for this grant. We know our community, we have a lot of language barrier, fill application, go through process. And then how, is any way, you guys gonna be able to assist, one with this process?
Absolutely. So it's not like it's not like a competitive, if you don't fill out this application, dot all your i's and cross all your t's, you don't qualify. We have a variety of languages that are spoken at the BRA, and so we are able to help people apply for this application. We do outreach events, provide informational material in different languages, get things translated so that people do understand what this program is, what it is able to provide to them, because we do hope that people take advantage of it.
Correct. And then when you say low income, for example, their house can be multiple family or single family, anyone can be able to apply for this grant?
Yes.
And then do you know how long the process does take it for them to get approved?
No, so this is a new grant for us as well, and so we'll be ironing out a lot of what is going to take place with processing applications, but it is a process. So it's one thing to get approved, it's another thing to get the contractors and construction workers and all the work done. So it's hard to give you a finite timeline on it. The approval process is typically as fast as we can get documents done, as fast as they can get documents to us, depending on if we have a wait list once this takes off and starts going as well.
You guys does have application online, if someone doesn't want to go,
Yes.
they just want to go online, can you say it right there, how can, if anyone want to hear that?
Yes, ma'am. So we do have the applications online where they will be able to do it. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much, that's all I have.
Councilors, shortly before this meeting began this evening, I confirmed that there is a technical defect with this order, and so it must be tabled and resubmitted again. The order has the funds going to the BRA, but in fact, the funds should be going to the city of Brockton. So I've talked to the clerk about it. Mr. Clarkson is aware of it. It will be resubmitted tomorrow with the correct information. But I thought we should go forward. Dr. Jackson and members of her team were here. I thought this would be a very worthwhile conversation. So at this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Farwell to withdraw his motion. And then I'm going to ask for a motion to table.
You mean table or postpone?
Table. We have to do a new order.
All right, motion to table.
Second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We will revisit this shortly in a new form. Thank you very much for being here.
Item 7, resolve. Be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite representative from Mass Inc., Gateway Cities, Innovation Institute to come before the City Council to make a presentation and discuss their findings relative to the Gateway Cities Report on social infrastructure featuring the City of Brockton. Invited Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Andre LaRue, excuse me if I pronounce that incorrectly.
Yes,
Mass-
LaRue.
Great. LaRue, Mass Inc. Gateway Hubs Project Director.
Gentlemen, good evening, and I appreciate your patience.
Good morning, councilors.
Almost.
I'm very pleased to be here to introduce Andre LaRue, who is with Mass Inc. Since 1995, Mass Inc. has been a statewide policy center for urban communities throughout the Commonwealth. Their original research on gateway cities or on the smaller post-industrial communities in the city, in the state, led to the creation of the phrase gateway cities and several new, at that time, new state programs to provide funding to our communities. Just recently, Mass Inc. has been, and the Gateway City Institute, conducted a study on social infrastructure in 5 gateway communities, and Brockton was one of those, and we were very lucky to have them be selected as part of this. And a quick background on the phrase social infrastructure. It's all those places that we run into other people, that we hang out, that we do our business, but it's not the places that we work or where we sleep necessarily. So it can be anything from a park to a streetscape to a plaza to a coffee shop. So they are important assets in our communities, and this report looks at our current existing conditions and comes up with a series of recommendations. So, Andre.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, and councilors. Thank you. I know it's the end of a long evening. Thank you for inviting me, so I'll try to keep it snappy, keep you engaged. I believe you have, is the presentation coming up on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Andre LaRue. Thank you. I'm the director of the Gateway Hubs project at Mass Inc., which looks at how our small cities like Brockton all around the state can really become those regional hubs that they were once and should be again. So particularly our downtowns. And just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Worcester and have done a lot of work in cities all across the Commonwealth. I lived and worked in Lawrence. I've done a lot of work in New Bedford and many other places. So as Rob mentioned, Brockton is one of 5 case studies that we've done around the state. And to explain what the concept of social infrastructure means, it essentially refers to all the aspects of our cities that help create connected communities, right? And so that can be anything from a front stoop to sports facilities, to community rooms and centers, to formal parks and playgrounds, and many more in addition, such as the so-called third spaces. You may be familiar with this term, but if not, it refers to those kinds of private spaces that are interior spaces, but that function as public spaces. And again, that could be anything like a cafe, bakery, a food court, an arcade, community centers. And the pandemic has really put into relief the future of our downtowns. As we've seen large metropolitan downtowns like Boston, we've seen a lot of people workers leave the downtown, and now they're struggling with underused office space there because people are not going to downtown Boston 5 days a week. That's creating problems for the T. But what we're concerned about is more around small downtowns like Brockton's. And this really represents an opportunity, we think, for cities like Brockton, where if we can make our downtowns places which are really enticing neighborhoods, complete neighborhoods that have all the amenities for live, work, and play, you can capture a lot of those, the people who may be, working on a hybrid basis. And it could be an opportunity to bring more life to your downtowns. And a lot of that has to do with amenities. So one question that I like to ask is, can you pass the stroll test? Can you spend an hour or two in downtown Brockton without having anywhere to go in particular? You can certainly do that in most parts of the world. In Europe and Latin America, the Middle East, there are civic spaces where people can go without having to do anything, to buy anything. But here in the United States, we have not done a good job of planning and designing our cities that way, in part because we're a new country and in part because our cities and towns in Massachusetts, in New England really, were formed around the common, much more of a passive park type of place, not the marketplace or the civic center that are throughout the other parts of the world. So 4 questions that we like to ask. What makes a downtown vibrant and walkable? We looked at 4 things. One is it oriented towards cars or people? Second, are your streetscapes active or inactive? Do you have the amenities nearby or far away that you might want in a neighborhood? And finally, your civic spaces, do they generate pedestrians or are they designed to defend against pedestrians and against users? So we looked at downtown Brockton, and this is a map of your downtown. All of what you see outlined in yellow and orange are the off-street parking facilities. Most of that is surface parking. The difference between the orange and the yellow is that the orange are parking facilities operated by the Brockton Parking Authority. And the yellow is privately owned. And I know there was a kind of a comment earlier in the day about parking and the need for parking. This seems to indicate there's a lot of parking in downtown Brockton, that more than a quarter of all of your land is dedicated to parking in the downtown. More than a third of all of your developable land is parking in the downtown. And finally, if you include the streets and the on-street parking, almost half of all of your land in the downtown is dedicated to cars. So what are the implications of that? And let me, since this is the Finance Committee, let me give you a finance example. So here's an example from the city of Fitchburg. Both of these examples are parcels on their main street. This is a chain store, something that I think many communities would consider to be good economic development. It's less than half an acre, total value of $325,000. This was from a few years ago, so maybe a little outdated, the numbers. But that means it's a value per acre of about $784,000. If you then compare that to just down the street, a much older building, a building that some would consider to be underutilized or even deteriorated, and this is really just referring to a piece of this brick building. It only represents 1/10 of an acre with a value of only $194,000, but the value per acre is $1.7 million. And so the way we tend to look at economic development is we're looking at these parcels, but we're not looking at it on a per acre basis. And when you have more uses and activities in a denser, more compact fashion, you really multiply the benefit to the city. And so what you actually get, if you look at almost any city in the country, probably every city in the country, the areas which tend to be more compact, more dense, tend to be also the more low-income parts of the city. They are also your biggest generators of property value and property taxes. Your wealthier areas are more spread out and give you less per acre property tax return. So the implication for that is when you look at economic development in your downtowns, you want to generate a variety of uses and activities and as dense a walkable fashion as possible. So the second thing that we did is we looked at your streetscapes in downtown. And here's just a few examples. And I should say that we have many more slides and background information, which I'm happy to make available to you. I'm just doing a small portion of this tonight. But if you look at the different streetscapes along a variety of key streets in the downtown, you'll see that a lot of your streetscape is what we call inactive, right? The yellow is limited activity and the green is, and the parking, quite frankly, the amount of parking that you have creates a lot of that inactivity, right? Because you're not necessarily clustering those things together. You don't kind of walk around downtown Brockton to do 3 or 4 different things oftentimes. You drive somewhere to do something and maybe you drive away. And I think the challenge for small cities nowadays is to become sort of shift from a car-oriented city where you can drive everywhere and park right in front of where you're going to what we call a multimodal downtown, which is a neighborhood that gives you transportation options. And you park your car, you drive nearby, you park your car somewhere that's well signed and very clear, and then you walk around the downtown. And to the many of residents who might not even own cars, because at least 15% of your residents don't even own vehicles, your households, you can serve them with transit, you can give them places to walk to, you can improve your bike facilities. And then we looked at kind of what makes a complete neighborhood. So some of the basic amenities that you might want in your neighborhood are things like access to a pharmacy, to a market, to playgrounds, to schools. And we map some of these uses. And as you can see in the downtown, in the northwest kind of quadrant of that downtown, that's where a lot of these amenities are clustered right now. So that's great. You have a lot to build on there. But what that maybe indicates to you is that you want to strengthen that cluster and expand it as much as possible to other parts of the downtown. And then finally, we looked at civic spaces. Here is just an example of a very successful civic space from Mexico City. I used to live in Mexico City, so I like showing images from there. But the idea here is that the edge of your civic spaces are full of activities. The edges are what's really important to your civic spaces. You can have beautiful civic spaces, but if the edges are not there, you're not going to have a lot of activity. And the edges need to have they need to be porous. There needs to be a lot of activity going in and out, and that will welcome people. So we looked at a few of the civic spaces that you have in your downtown. One of them, the commuter rail station. Obviously, the current public safety building is not the most welcoming piece of architecture, surrounded by parking. Not even a lot of windows, at least on this facade. And there's a real opportunity here for redeveloping it to something that could bridge more effectively across the tracks to Montello Street and could activate that frontage along Commercial Street, which is also opposite the Bat Center. Secondly, we looked at City Hall Plaza. Obviously, a key place for a civic space, but it's surrounded mostly by parking and by inactive uses. So if you wonder why your City Hall Plaza is not as active as it could be, that's really why. You don't have active edges around the City Hall Plaza, and to the extent that you can fill in those edges with some key redevelopment and some uses that complement what's there already, you can really expand that. One thing that we looked at around these civic spaces are what are the activities during the day and during the week? And just very quickly, I won't explain these bar charts too much other than to say each of these bars represents sort of a time frame, so morning, middle of the day, into the evening. And it maps sort of through, just by looking at the Google Analytics of the activities around that space, how much activity is being generated by those uses around that space. So no surprise, what this says is at 9 to 5, there's a lot of people in and out of City Hall and some of the other institutional uses around City Hall Plaza. But once you get to the evening hours, there's almost nothing. I know that I think I'm one of 3 cars over in the parking lot over there when I pulled in. And on the weekend, there's virtually no activity around City Hall Plaza. So rather than kind of investing a lot more and trying to fix up, like, what's wrong with City Hall Plaza? Why don't we invest more in the plaza? No, invest more in the edges around the plaza. I mean, we've seen this. This is something that, you know, plagues not just small cities, but big cities. You probably heard Boston City Hall Plaza has been reinvented so many times. That's not the problem. The problem is, what is the edge to that space? Even very poor spaces, if it has great edges, will be activated. So we looked at kind of maybe a third space that you might not think of as a civic space in downtown Brockton, but Legion Parkway. It is it has 4 rows of on-street parking, so it's quite wide. It has trees. It has some very interesting kind of low-rise commercial spaces. And we started thinking to ourselves, this seems to be where there's some real organic activity there. And there's real opportunities to build on it and to improve it. Even though there's some vacant storefronts, even though there's a couple of lots, there's a couple of automotive uses at one end, there's potentially a lot there. When we graphed the uses of the activities around Legion Parkway, looks very different than around City Hall Plaza. You have a wide range of activities, and even though the highest bar chart is, you know, vacant there, that just means you have a great opportunity. And then during the day, again, compared to what we saw with the bar charts around the City Hall Plaza, this just shows that you get a little bit more activity into the evening hours during the week. And on the weekend, you have some activity, right? There's sort of a lot you could improve on there, but there's something to build from. And just to show a couple of images about the kinds of ideas, and these are taken from larger cities, but gives you a sense of what could be done about making those active edges, having street furniture. And the nice thing about Legion Parkway, I think, is that because you have the 4 lanes of on-street traffic, that's all, you know, owned by the city, you can flexibly experiment with that space. You could take a couple of lanes either in the middle or on the edges to put things like parklets, to, you know, during the good weather months, to put restaurant seating out there and try to attract more restaurant uses there. Maybe bring some food trucks on the weekends to that space. See what works in those spaces and try to build on that. Again, you could also potentially make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly by having a different kind of paving on the surface that welcomes pedestrians more than what's there right now. And, you know, one extreme version of this is to really integrate the whole street as sort of a plaza. So it's not closed off from traffic, but you could have the sidewalk and the streetscape really blend into each other down the road. But, you know, there's a lot that can be done with what we call lighter, quicker, cheaper things. With very small money, you can try, you know, placemaking projects that would, on a short-term basis, experiment with some of these things to see what works. And obviously, talking to the businesses and the institutions that are there around Legion Parkway would be essential, and figuring out how to expand uses and attract activities that are going to complement what's there already. Then the nice thing there is that, you know, you want to have a mix, have a really vibrant mix. You want to have some newer properties and older properties. And Legion Parkway, you have some of that. You have some of the older properties, which means it's lower rents, which means you can have some of your smaller homegrown businesses in those spaces. And that would complement some of the new development that you're also building in downtown. So I'm just going to end with a few of our policy recommendations, just that we summarized. So you can look at this more at your leisure, and I have a longer slide deck that I'll make available to you later, and we can post it online on our organization's website. But in terms of parking, we recommend consolidating the parking, improving the signage so that people know where to go, because you do have enough parking, but you just have to make sure people get used to using it a little bit differently. Don't put the parking right in the middle of where you want the pedestrians to be, where you want your storefront activity to be. Put it behind, around, underneath. Wrap it if you can. Secondly, some of that infill development, all of this parking and car space gives you an opportunity to build your downtown, really rebuild it, because if you look at any city like Brockton or any place in New England, In the 1920s, I guarantee you look at photos from the 1920s, you will have a lot more activity. So when people say, oh, you know, the good old days of Brockton, they're not really talking about the 1960s. Go back to the 1920s when there was almost no parking and there was lots of people. And I know that there's congestion is a very sensitive issue, but the one thing that I will say is that congestion means that people want to be there. If it's easy to find parking and you don't have any congestion, well, it's probably because nobody's going downtown. So think about that. Place governance. If you have a really special places that you make for public use, it's going to get a lot of use, which means you need to have some stewardship of those places. So business improvement district or something like that, cultural district, you need to have some governance that's going to help you. The city can't do everything, the private sector can't do everything, nonprofits and residents can't do everything on their own, but you can create a public-private resident nonprofit partnership where everybody can participate and create some of those supplemental service and give that TLC to the downtown that it needs. And then finally, the last few things, biking and transportation. I already talked about shifting from more of that car orientation towards a multimodal orientation. You can also think about bike infrastructure and kind of what they call micro-mobility, which, you know, might not be ready for scooters and things like that, but if you can help people get around easier, all the better. Walking, try to connect things to each other so that people want to start walking and not driving between things in the downtown. Downtown's small, and they shouldn't have to drive anywhere in the downtown. And then finally, you know, the civic spaces. Think about developing these special places that act as a front porch where people can go and people watch, because it's been proven what brings people to places more than anything is other people. It's other people. So it's not just shopping, but it's people watching. People like to do that. And make it so that it's welcoming to everybody. It's not just, you know, you should be able to be in a place where if you are unhoused or if you are a family with young children, everybody feels welcoming. There's enough eyes on the street. There's enough of a diversity of people that everybody feels welcome and part of the community. So I'll leave it there. And if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. LaRue and Director May. Thank you for this beautiful presentation. But I have to say Brockton's a little unique. We've tried all that. We've tried the bikes. I'd like to think we'd become a bike community, but sadly, you know, we've tried a lot of different programs, we've done presentations, but we're just not there. We're not Boston. We're not, you know, Brockton tends to move at its own, go in its own direction, own speed. But so I'm going to talk about parking, because I know you mentioned we have a lot of parking spaces. But if you attend any of our zoning meetings, planning meetings, license, whenever any development or any new business comes in, that's the first thing that is required, whether it's the developments that were before us this evening. That's probably the first thing that any board member mentioned to them is, do you have enough parking spaces? Because by law, they're required per, and I don't know exactly the law, but Mr. May would be able to help me, per unit, per apartment, they are required to have a certain number of parking spaces. I think is it 1.5 per, depending on how many bedrooms or, so they're required to have these parking spaces. That's why I was happy to see that the building that's going in the old Marion building to have parking underneath. So, you know, I respect these studies. I just feel like sometimes, you know, I know we're dealing with an issue now where if you're going to take parking spaces from businesses, they're going to be in an uproar. And we don't have enough going on downtown that we can tell you know, residents to park in a parking garage and walk, you know, a few blocks to go to a business, to go to a restaurant, or to go have a drink. So I think maybe when the time comes, eventually, if Brockton is booming like it was in the 1920s and 40s, when there were businesses all along, you know, Main Street, I think then we could see this. But for the time being, I just see that it's going to be very difficult. This is not for the near future, maybe hopefully down the line. With that being said, my first question to you is, we've had many studies done about Main Street becoming two ways. Where are we did that go into any of this? Unless I missed it, I didn't see that in here.
That's not something that we looked at. We just looked at existing conditions, so I don't know.
As the councilor may know, with the new public safety building, the first priority is to get Warren Avenue open to two-way traffic. And once that happens, we'll be able to work on Main Street.
So that is, I know we've had many studies since you've been.
It is a high priority in the administration.
Okay. Once again, this is beautiful, and I love the views of what Legion Parkway could become. And I have high hopes for Legion Parkway, especially with the new public safety facility. I think that's going to change that whole area. I think in the back of our mind, we just can't assume we have enough parking just because I hear it from everybody. I hear it from business owners, I hear it from residents, and I think we just need to, somehow keep that in the planning.
Yeah. Councilor, if I could just say a few things. What you're saying is something I hear in every community. So, we have developed for the last 50 years around cars in this country. So it is very difficult to change that. And I'm not suggesting that we're saying, or that I'm saying that that cars are going to disappear. It's not. I think the cars can be managed in a different way. So 95% of Brockton is car-oriented and is going to stay car-oriented. What I'm suggesting is that you should think about 5% of your city and trying to do something a little bit different with it. And that if you look at where young people and, especially young professionals and older people who want to downsize and the kinds of neighborhoods that they want to move to, of course, Cambridge, Somerville, parts of Boston, some parts of other communities, because they have these characteristics. And what I'm suggesting is that you have a great opportunity, you have a really great amenity here. Downtown Brockton is already built out. So many communities all around the country would love to have what you have here in terms of your street layout and your infrastructure. And it's what Brockton used to be. So all you have to do is really rebuild that. And again, it's not going to be, we're not talking about urban renewal, blowing blocks out. That doesn't work. It's really about building organically on what successes you have, but trying to address some of the people who want to move to downtown Brockton and some of these wonderful apartment buildings that you're building. Give them some things to do. They need that kind of amenity if you're going to attract not only them, but attract employers, because Brockton, just like every other small city, really could use more employers and jobs and small businesses. But the only way that small businesses nowadays can compete with the big boxes of the world and with the online retailers of the world is by being in special places. They really depend on foot traffic. And so the more you can increase that foot traffic, the more successful and thriving a small business community that you'll have. And I know that small businesses, they're going to be the first ones concerned about taking any parking away or changing the way parking is done, but that's because they're hanging on by their fingernails. And changing, shifting that perspective is challenging, but it can be done. I mean, you could look at a community like Newburyport, for example. That place used to be, not that long ago, a really tough waterfront community, and now it's a place that everybody wants to be. And people never thought that it would change. When I worked in, Lawrence, especially 20 years ago, I remember hosting meetings, and people would say, we have millions of square feet of these mills. They are never going to be anything but warehousing. That's all we can put in there. We'll never fill this up with anything else. Now all of the mills are almost all converted to residential uses. The last remaining ones are being converted in the coming years. So I think it can happen. It's just important to keep your eye on the eye on the prize, I guess, the long term.
Definitely, and I'm all for that. I've always lived in big cities, so I'm all for it. I just know that Brockton still has a little bit of, I think we need to take care of what we have as well, so that's
Yeah.
why we have a lot of development, a lot of new apartments. I would love to see more retail, more commercial downtown, and I know they'll come in as we get the residential housing, but I just want to make sure that we're going in the right direction, that we don't, that we don't
Yeah.
take a detour. But thank you, this is a beautiful presentation. Thank you very much. All set, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to Brockton. And Mr. LaRue, we appreciate this presentation. I think it was very well done. You brought up a lot of great points. I think, we talk about economic development all the time, and we're looking at buildings, right? We're looking at residential buildings, we're looking at commercial, mixed use, where, man, we want to build something here, build something there, and we get so focused on building these buildings. When those take time, they take a lot of money, and we're kind of missing, I think, what you just presented to us today, the social infrastructure. I go downtown, what's the identity of our downtown? It's not really cohesive. And the idea that you bring up that we should be experimenting. We have these spaces that, let's roll the dice. Let's have some festival or food truck, food court type of thing, or, really start working with the people who live downtown or in our development office and this council to really start experimenting. Let's throw something on the wall and see what sticks. Because you're right, we have the space. We have the dynamic people. We have a tremendous love for this city. But I think we're not doing the small things, these meeting places, the social infrastructure that you speak of. We're so focused on the big stuff, which we should be. But I think it's time we start, just kind of rolling the dice and start programming downtown and try to get our commercial businesses downtown involved in that. And I know, we're working on a bid, so you talk about management of downtown, and I think you're absolutely right. We need to, have a more cohesive programming of downtown and have a governance board that includes the business owners and developers downtown to start programming downtown. But, I think we're ready to start moving forward with what works for Brockton. Because I said, we have the people, we have the love, we have the space. We just got to start doing something. And it may not be perfect when we first roll it out. But I think we'll get there, with some passion behind it. We talk about downtown, and I think we want downtown to be something that you mentioned. It's not really so much as a destination point for other cities or even, the surrounding neighborhoods, but a neighborhood for the people who live and work downtown. And I think, we should look at it like that, not so much of this destination point that everybody in Brockton or surrounding communities are going to want to come downtown. Now, we want that, but I think if we look at downtown as a neighborhood and how do we activate that neighborhood, I think that would be a success for Brockton. We bring up the parking. I think one of the things Brockton has to look at is, we have to really accentuate or maximize the parking assets that we have that are already existing. And so one of the things I know the planner and I are working on is Adam's Garage and trying to get that as a 24-hour facility. But I think you're right, because I go to a lot of, when I go to Boston, I'm not parking in front of the place I want to go to. I'm parking in some peripheral parking garage, and then I'm walking over to that place. And while I'm walking to that place, I'm passing retail and bar and restaurant and, a million different things. Like you said, cultural issues. I'm stopping, I'm reading a plaque. I'm stopping, I'm admiring a statue or a park commemorating something. And you're right, I want to get to this bar or this restaurant, but I'm spending 20 minutes getting there just soaking in the pathway, soaking in what that city is laying out for me to recognize and share. So I think Brockton, with the tremendous history that we have in this city, we need to add in some of those cultural and historic type of things that people on their way to anywhere can stop and say, oh, hey, this is the Liberty Tree, and this is where Frederick Douglass gave, abolitionist, speeches, or even I know we'll have the Marvin Hagler statue and parklet and Pocket Park, and I think we got parklets coming down the line, hopefully, within the next few months. But we just got to start, getting out there, programming our downtown, see what works for us, see what doesn't, see, are people willing to walk a little bit from a garage to a function. And, we're working on Sycamore Grove and hopefully activating that area. But I think all of the elements and ingredients are here in Brockton. We just got to start, really. Actually, we got to start, and I don't think we've started yet. And I look forward to working with you, Mr. May, and the rest of this council. And I think this summer should be the beginning of really programming downtown and see what we can do here in the city that we all really love.
Yeah, two quick comments. One is that, a lot of the stuff, this isn't news to Rob. I know that you've got a great planning staff here. But the planning staff alone, no matter how good they are, can't take care of a downtown, let alone a whole city. And that's where empowering the private sector and residents and the nonprofits to take more responsibility for some of the civic space can be really helpful. That's why like a bid can be really exciting, and other kinds of partnership models. The other thing I'll just say, which gets back to the parking issue that you touched on again, is that even without reducing parking or putting any more pressure on the parking that you have, there's a lot that you could do to kind of stretch out the uses during the day and on the weekends, right? Because really, if you're looking at your parking downtown, a lot of it is going to the 9 to 5 uses, right? So City Hall parking lot is busy during City Hall hours during the day. No surprise. So what that tells you is that the kinds of uses you want to attract to your downtown need to be complementary to that. If you bring another bank downtown, which is also going to have 9 to 5 hours, if you bring another, institution like a courthouse or something downtown, it's going to have 9 to 5 hours, that's not going to give you the downtown vitality that you want. You can, through using the existing underutilized parking that sits there in the evenings, you can have a lot more uses that are complementary. And so that would indicate to me that you want to start thinking about attracting as much as possible businesses that operate in the evenings and on the weekends, maybe provide some activities for families, for teenagers, and that will, better utilize what you already have in the downtown.
No, I agree. Looking at your bar chart and seeing that after 5 o'clock, crickets. It is dead in downtown Brockton, and as dead during the weekend. We really have to address this. We would love for Brockton to become an 18-hour city, and we have a lot of work to do, but your insights really help.
Well, and the other thing that you mentioned was sort of having a kind of a theme or an overarching vision for downtown. And I think, that's great. Again, that's looking to your existing residents and businesses. And you have a really strong, thriving Black community here in Brockton. And so to the extent that you can make sure that you include them and create opportunities to build entrepreneurship in your downtown area is going to make your downtown more special on a regional level as a place for folks to come and spend their money.
Right. Now, Brockton has the dynamicism to, to be a vibrant community. We got to tap into it.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of your entrepreneurs, your entrepreneurs of color in particular, they might be out, they're not in the downtown area necessarily. They might be out in the Westgate area or, or neighborhood parts of the city. So what can you do to bring some of that existing energy downtown?
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. LaRue. We really appreciate your time and your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Farwell?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. The more knowledge we have, I think the better equipped we are to make intelligent decisions. And I just have a couple of technical and then questions on the presentation. We did this work pursuant to a grant that I think your agency carried out, am I right?
Well, the interesting thing is that my agency did not get any money from it. So we partnered early on, back in 2021, with Walk Boston, which is a statewide organization that does walking advocacy, and they conducted with stakeholders in the downtown area what's called a walk audit. So walking with folks with local folks to evaluate the walking conditions. And then what my organization did with essentially no funding, just other funding that we have as an organization, but we thought it was important. We tried to figure out what's the value add, what could we say about not only what are the walking conditions downtown, but why or why not are people walking in these downtowns.
Okay, so when you came to Brockton, what were your marching orders? Who directed you to do what and when?
Well, essentially, we created this research project on our own, me and my team.
Okay, so did we hold public meetings?
There was some public meetings that were held jointly by Walk Boston and Mass Inc. Again, the original research was started in 2021, so it's been kind of a long time coming. And a lot of the research has been conducted by my teams of interns. So.
Okay, but in public participation meetings here in Brockton?
They were, well, in 2021, everybody was still remote. So we did a couple of Zoom public meetings, yes. And we also did an in-person walk. We let individuals, we gave them kind of a map, let them go out, take their own pictures, provide their own notes. All that was uploaded to a public website, and I can track down the link if you want to that as well.
Do you know if your team had a chance to talk to the Cape Verdean Association or the Haitian Community Partners or people at the Council on Aging? In other words, I'm looking for the basis for some of these observations and recommendations. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but any presentation obviously is validated by the depth of the research and the number of people who perhaps were consulted and the feedback that you received.
Yes.
And that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I would say during the walk audit process, we probably had about 35 to 40 participants in that process. We did have I know, Rob and his team helped us identify a group of outreach stakeholders to reach out to, which did include some of the groups that you just talked about. Black-owned Brockton did participate in the in-person walk around. Honestly, I'd have to go back and look at who participated.
Council on Aging.
Council on Aging did participate. I know the Health Center participated. I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
Did you have a chance to meet with the mayor at some point?
Did not sit down with the mayor.
How about
personally.
any of the councilors?
I did not have
Okay.
separate meetings, no.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you've kind of walked into a situation here which is very typical and it's not of your making, but sometimes we are the last to know what's going on, and it just as a resident, but as someone who is temporarily honored to serve in the council, it is always helpful to have information. Now, on one of your slides, PowerPoint, you have a major commuter rail station redevelopment could bridge to Montello Avenue, and I know you meant Montello Street.
Yes.
And activate Commercial Street. the city is already in early stage planning. So we are in early stage planning to completely redo the commuter rail stop downtown by the police station? Is
So
that what you
I'll
think?
just say, we did an early draft of it, and, then talked to the planning staff about it and got their feedback, so that was, I don't know if, Rob, you want to say
Sure.
anything?
I guess that's all that would be needed.
So I want to get two things out, just first of all, and then I'll address this question. The city did not engage Mass Inc. to do this work. Mass Inc. did it on their own, and they just happened to choose Brockton. And because of that, we've been able to bring that to you as a council. But they are an independently funded organization and not affiliated with the city or this department. With regards to making improvements at the existing police station on Commercial Street, what information we did provide to Mass Inc. was that we are, in the process of building a new public safety building, which will allow that old site on Commercial to be redeveloped. And we are currently working with Mass Econ to do a study under their Ready 100. Is that what they're called? Yes. So we're taking a look at that. But because of our urban renewal plan and our downtown action strategy, we have identified that as a acquisition parcel or a redevelopment parcel. So those are the pre-development activities that we're going through right now.
Okay, Mr. May, one of the reasons why, and I know you and I don't have a close relationship, I'm certainly not going to shock everyone by saying that. You keep saying we. He just said he never had a chance to talk to the mayor. Who is we? Because I tell you, before I leave this council, whether it's at the end of this term or in the future, I want to know who we is. Because we doesn't seem to be us. And whether you like the 11 of us or you don't, whether you like some of us, none of us, it just seems to be important that we have some sense of what's going on. Now, you just said that we did not engage him. He chose Brockton. But you knew about it.
Yes.
And as a matter of professional courtesy, couldn't we have had periodic updates as to what's going on? Couldn't we have known about that? Couldn't we have perhaps filed a resolve to have this gentleman come in and say, help us out here? Help us out in this particular area, that particular area. Now, just a minute, I have the floor. I know this may be upsetting, but I have to get it off my chest. Couldn't we have done that? And then we would have a stake in this. And that's what drives me crazy. And if you didn't talk to the mayor, and I don't know what to say, folks. You know, it's going to go on until all of us, put a stop to it. Either we represent the citizens of this city, and we have a right to know what's going on, and we participate, or you know what? We're not doing our job. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done for the night.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. May, I'm looking at this, and I was somewhat discouraged when it's not in color, or Mr. Ledoux, it's not in color, so I'm basically looking at these last two columns here as the one that basically says no activity, right? The one that you had when you showed it.
Yes, and just to be clear about what those bar graphs show is that we looked at the activities around City Hall Plaza and looked at their Google Analytic data, and there was no, they're just not open on weekends, those activities that are adjacent to City Hall Plaza.
Well, the thing is, I don't know exactly how far out you're going from City Hall Plaza in a way, but if I was a business looking to move into the downtown area or into City Hall Plaza, and I see this, that there basically is no activities in your downtown between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. Basically, no activities. You know, not too far from this City Hall, we've got some restaurants down here that I personally go to, a couple times a week.
Yeah, yes, sir. I just want to be clear that this is not about the downtown. This is really just about the properties that directly abut the City Hall Plaza. Because the idea behind what we were trying to explore here is the edges, this idea of are the edges of the civic spaces active or not, and when are they active? So it's not a judgment at all. It's just a guidance that could help, you and the city administration, maybe when thinking about what happens around City Hall Plaza, of creating that edge. And if there aren't, good edges, maybe things like food trucks or temporary uses could be something that could help fill in that edge more.
Because one of the things, for instance, I've gone to Washington, D.C. several times. You go down to the Capitol at nighttime, there's nothing going on around the Capitol. There's nobody walking around.
Right.
But no one comes up and says, oh, by the way, Washington is dead because nobody walks around the Capitol building at nighttime. But one I think the flaws that we have here in this city, we just recently created this Greater Brockton Minority Business Association. It has 150 members in it. People that were not connected through the traditional way of getting connected to the chambers and some of these other things. We attempted to bring somebody to this group from an organization that actually represents the SBA organization in terms of lending funds to the community.
Yeah.
And we were told point blank by this person that we do not go into Brockton after 5 p.m. on weekends because Brockton is unsafe. That's what we were told. It was actually told to Chris Cooney at the chamber and the rest of us, in the sense that, yeah, we're here, we're supposed to be the representative of the city of Brockton as well, but we will not go into Brockton in the PM hours because Brockton is unsafe. So this is what happens sometimes when we're selling this kind of bill of goods to the world, and we wonder why people don't come into Brockton or people don't travel into Brockton, because we're giving folks this perception of nothingness, this perception of emptiness. If you've got a building like City Hall that's closed at 5 p.m. in the afternoon, it's almost nearly impossible to have people walking around. What are they going to walk around? Like the Walking Dead, just walking around the building looking for something to do? We got to take it into perspective and call it for what it is. But we do not do. I don't see a lot of agencies like yours coming into Brockton saying, let's talk about what great stuff that you've got going on in this community. The fact that you graduate a ton of good kids. The fact that, we've got, we're the only majority black city in New England, And yet there's some very good things going on in this community. But often what we end up seeing are all these black eyes that show up to tell us how lousy our city is, how bad we're doing things, And that sometimes is frustrating to a lot of us that love this city to death. Yeah. And we're not going anywhere. People are packing up and moving out because they see the things. When I'm not going into Brockton because it's totally unsafe. One of the most unsafe cities in this country is Washington, D.C. But people don't say, I'm not going to D.C. because it's unsafe. But yet for Brockton, poor us, people say, I'm not traveling into Brockton because it's an unsafe city. But a lot of times when we have these studies, and you know what? Studies are geared towards the user's necessities, not necessarily the truth. And sometimes we got to be very careful exactly what we'll try to pitch, because every time we come in to try to pitch a particular idea, sometimes we're ending up hurting what we're trying to do. And it's frustrating for me, for instance, to see that at dinner time from 5 p.m. on, that there's nothing going on. We have a restaurant right down the street here. What are we doing to promote that restaurant so that it can stay open? Not much. We councilors don't go up there because we're looking for other places to travel. So how is he or she, I don't know who's running it now, the Peruvian place, supposed to succeed if we ourselves don't support that? And we should ask the same question. There's a meeting going on in this building almost every night of the week. How many of the people in this building are actually going across the street and getting something to eat out of those restaurants so that there's not, we don't have these so-called nothingness taking place in the city? Talk is cheap, but actions go a lot further than that. So we're not really pushing? Is there a program here in this building to dictate and letting people know that there's places around this plaza for people to go and eat? No. I wonder how many of us actually have gone to that place to eat and support that business. We talk a good game in some instances, but we don't put our money where our mouth is. You know, and that's what we need to start doing from now on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I hear the frustrations of the counselors, and I appreciate that. I would just say that I hope that I didn't give that impression in terms of what I'm saying, because I agree with you that these small city downtowns are our future, and I want them to be as successful as possible. And that graph that you pointed out was just for City Hall Plaza, and I hope you also saw that I included the graph for Legion Parkway to sort of contrast that with another piece of downtown that has a lot more of that organic activity, as you were talking about there. And my suggestion was focus on that, build on that.
I'm grateful to you for coming down and your presentation. I read your report over the weekend, a lot to think about. And I like comparing and contrasting with other gateway cities. Everyone has their strengths and their good things and their not so good things. You've heard about some of ours this evening. May I have a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Oh, the motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? And opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, counselors. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. LaRue. Appreciate
And
it.
I would just say, if anybody wants to follow up, I'm happy and available.
Good. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Counselors, unless there's something else, Counselor Azak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the City of Brockton and Wildlands Trusts have started the D.W. Fields Park initiative to improve D.W. Fields Park. So Brockton's largest park, and it's listed on the National and State Register of Historic Places. Old Colony Planning Council is conducting a survey on behalf of Wildlands Trust and asking Brockton residents to please take the survey. Responses are completely anonymous and confidential. The survey results will be used to inform development of projects at the park. So we urge residents to take the survey. You can go online at bit.ly/DW Field. And the closing date for the survey is March 31st, so we hope to get more responses from residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselors, we are adjourned.